broad enough that you could always tweak it later and not to be frustrated by that. That's what teaching always is. I always say flexibility is your middle name from now on.
Good. Yeah, you're going to be tweaking things all the time, and just about the time you got that perfect lesson that's all set to go, and you got it all ready to roll, and then the fire drill happens, and you lose 15 minutes of class, and now you got to figure out what to do about that 40-minute lesson that just became 25. Or in my case today, I had this really good 1-2 punch for my class, my 8th grade class. That what we were going to do today, we're working on systems of equations. I had this really cool problem where a line was intercepting the path of a comet and so forth, and I had this all laid out for 2 days. Now we got the darn snowstorm coming, and I just know we're going to miss school tomorrow. So what do I have to do about it? We had to double up because at our school we're doing the blizzard bags. You guys hear about the blizzard bags? So it means that we're allowed to do up to 3 days where you don't actually, it's more or less an E-class, where you can give your students work to do at home and you don't have to count that as a calamity day. And so we're using one of our blizzard bag days tomorrow. So what I had to do is double up, do a double lesson with my students, gave them 2 different assignments. Tomorrow I'm going to post a little video to help them. It has to be posted by noon, and tomorrow will count as a school day even if they're not there. And it messed up my entire plan for the week. Oh well. I mean, it's just what it is. So we get used to that as teachers. I can either stress about it, or I can just say, you know what, that's the way the world is, I just got to do it, take care of it, So we get used to playing the field with whatever comes at us all the time. So, do you have any questions at all about the paper?
Can we use TED Talks, or like I went to Jody Hayes' talk at the end of last semester about like active learning, and I took notes on that. Can I use that as sources in the paper?
You can. There is an APA format actually for using notes from a presentation in a paper. And if you look that up, there's actually a standard way that you can format that. You give the name of the person who gave the talk and the date that they gave the presentation, and you can actually cite that using APA. So yeah, you can.
And what would TED Talk be called? Would that be like a presentation?
Yeah, it would be a presentation. It would be kind of the same thing. You need kind of presenter, web address, date that you retrieved it, kind of like it really would fall into the category of being an internet source and citing it within the internet resource.
I know the methodology can be really broad. For part of mine, I want to take a survey to figure out like student responses to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Do I just need to say that I'm going to do surveys and like list the main concepts that I'm looking for, or do you want like sample questions, or do you get more as specific as we can?
I would say you don't have to get terribly specific. What I would suggest there is to sort of walk the middle line. Say, for example, if a person were to say, my methodology is that I would give students a survey, period, and that's it. I'm going to say, yeah, right? But if you wanted to say, I'm going to give students a survey on Tuesday of the first week, and I'm going to ask them the following 25 questions and see attached, and there's the whole survey, that's too much. You don't have to do that. So the middle way for me would be kind of, I'm going to give my students a survey. It would be toward the beginning of the unit. I anticipate asking them maybe 20 questions or so, and I would ask them things like this, and maybe give me just a question or two, so I get some kind of idea of what you're planning on doing. So you don't have to go all the way with it, but enough that at least your advisor and I get a sense of this is what you have in your mind. Good questions. Anything else?
For our final paper, is the list of questions necessary though? Like for when we do it in 4160? Do you understand what I'm asking?
No. Try me again.
What? So for our 4160, when we actually do it in the classroom and do our paper on that,
okay.
Do we have to actually include our survey questions in like an
Oh, I see what you mean. In the 4160s. Yes,
yeah.
you will. You will
Okay.
do that. So normally that's attached like as an appendix. So you either create a survey from scratch or you borrow one that somebody else has already created or modified it. And when you do that, you normally in your writing you would say, I gave the students a survey and see Appendix A, and you'll actually include the survey as part of the paper. That's pretty common. One thing I want to say about that too, just as an aside, this is something we'll come back to next year, but it's in my head, and that is I've mentioned before that we have money set aside for 3160 and 4160, right? So that's money that you didn't pay it, but Choose Ohio First did for your fee, course fee for the class, and we set that aside to defray the cost of things that you would like to do. And an example of that is a survey, because you're going to find when you're doing your literature reviews and stuff, that sometimes you run across a survey maybe that you want to use, and it's a really cool survey, but it's copyrighted. And if you want to give it to 25 kids, you actually have to pay maybe $3 per person to give that survey, and you actually buy the survey from a company. If you need to do that and you need $75 to buy the survey, don't let that get in the way. If you need money to buy the survey, let us know, and we can buy that for you. Okay, within limits, obviously. But there are things like that that don't let just the cost, the fact that, oh shoot, you actually have to buy that and I can't afford that. You don't have to afford it. We've got money set aside. If it's reasonable, we can certainly buy it for you. We've done that with other projects. Okay, Lance? Oh, I'm sorry. Maggie, that was your hand? I thought Lance had it. I just saw the hand. Yeah.
Yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh, like, okay, for our project, like, I have to give a self-efficacy test, and, like, I already know which one I'm using. Should I just go ahead and include that in our methodology and include that in the appendix?
You could if you wanted
Okay.
to. If you already know that you're headed down that road, you want to include it, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no harm in including. That's kind of back to that, can it be more than 7 pages
Okay.
question. If you've already got it, you've identified it, you know you really would like to use this and you want to include it, great.
Great.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so that's one of the others. There's 3 things that you're kind of being graded on in the 3160 class. One is your participation and attendance here, okay? And that's a slam dunk, that's easy, you're here. A second one is the paper, and then the third is your advisor checklist. And that's the other handout that you have, so you want to take a look at that for a minute. I just want to reiterate a couple of things here, and it really relates to what Cheryl just said about making sure that you're in contact with your advisor. There are kind of 4 categories that are on this checklist. One of them is about deadlines, one is about the proposal paper itself, one is communication, and one is your professionalism. So, your advisor is going to complete this form generally after you turn your paper in the beginning of March. They just fill it out and turn it in to Wendy. And they're rating you on a scale of 1 to 4 in each of those categories. So look at the categories carefully. One of them is setting and meeting deadlines for your research and writing throughout the semester. Have you set deadlines for yourself? If you and your advisor decide you're going to turn a rough draft into him or her by February 20th that you're going to work on, then you want to make sure that you meet that, if you've met that deadline. So it's good to set some interim deadlines for yourself that your things are getting done on time. Second one, a really big one, you discussed, wrote, and submitted an acceptable research proposal. And together with that, the next one, communicating regularly with your project advisor. I have to say we've been down this road. This is our 3rd time down the road for doing 3160. This has been pretty good for most people, but we've had some snags in the road. We've also had some people that waited till the last minute and literally turned in the paper to their advisor the day it was due and said, there it is. And the advisor never had any opportunity to give any input, look at a draft, or even discuss it. It just was handed to them. You don't want that to happen. The whole reason why you have an advisor is you got somebody to walk with you, that you can say, here's what I'm thinking, here's a draft, give me some feedback, and work with that person. Use them, okay, to help you make it a better product. If you wait until the very end and your advisor doesn't have time, don't put them in a position where the paper is due in 2 days and you send it to them and say, I need all your feedback because I got to have this done by tomorrow. That's not fair to your advisor. So we really want to make sure that you're doing things as you go. So write a draft, have a conversation, email, phone, or in person, and make sure that you are in communication with your advisor. As long as you're doing that, you're going to be fine. Okay? And the last category, which really, again, this links to it, is that you acted professionally in the process. You kept your appointments. You asked good questions. If you tell your advisor that you're going to call her at 4 o'clock on Thursday, you make sure you call her at 4 o'clock on Thursday and not emailing her at 6 o'clock the next morning saying, sorry, I forgot last night. Keep your appointments, make sure that you stay to your deadlines so that you're professional throughout the process. That's a really important thing. My son was just telling me last night about Charlie Weiss when he was coaching at Notre Dame. He wasn't very successful there. But at any rate, when he was coaching at Notre Dame, he had a policy with his players always that he would have individual appointments with them all the time. And he would set an appointment time, and he would be at his desk, and if you came 1 minute late, you're dismissed off the team. So he would say, you got a 3 o'clock appointment. If you walk in the door at 3:01, you're done. Because he was trying to teach his players. That's what it's about. You make appointments, you keep appointments. You be there when you're supposed to be there, you get the work done when it's supposed to be done. If you can't do that, you're off the team. So I think there's just that whole element of professionalism there. These should be really easy points for you to get. you know, you want your advisor to say, well, of course, he or she has done a great job of that, check, 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 and you get all the points. We want that to happen. But we also recognize that you're responsible for making sure that you set and meet deadlines and that you're professional, and so we want to put that in your report to do. Okay? The deadline for that is for your advisors to turn it into us by April the 1st. And usually what happens is once your paper is done and turned in, then your advisor follows behind it and turns that into us. Do you have any questions at all about that process? Yes?
Are our advisors also grading our paper, right?
Yes.
Okay, so make sure. So this is the only thing, they're grading two things.
They really are, that's right. The only thing I'm doing is I just assess the participation and attendance from our end. From there, the advisor does everything else, in both 3160 and 4160. Okay, so I want to hear from you a little bit here. We did this last time, a little bit of sharing of some things, and I want to do just a quick go around in the table again. Some of you have had changes in your topics since last time. Some of you are still on the same beat that you were the last time we got together, but it's been a few months. I want to know what the topic of your paper is, and I know that you've been doing some research and meeting with your advisors, and I'm wondering if you can share, you tell us, just remind us quickly of your topic, and if there's anything interesting that has emerged, either through conversation with your advisor or perhaps doing your research for your writing that you want to share with the group about your topic. I'd like to hear that. Okay? So if we can move chairs a little bit so that everybody can see one another. All right, we'll start in the middle of the circle. Corey, you want to go first?
All right. Basically, I'm doing the effects of word walls in a math or science classroom, and whether or not it helps students with vocabulary and increases their knowledge of them. Doing research, there has not been a lot about it, especially in a math or science classroom. So like language arts teachers are basically like, well, you know, we're going to do this, but math and science are like, well, we're just strictly math and science. We don't want to incorporate language arts into it. So that's right.
It's a little hard to find the good studies because there haven't been that much that's been done. Yeah. Good. By the way, all the math people in the room are automatically recognizing that Corey is not the center of the circle. You're kind of wondering.
Yeah, you said that, I was like,
Yeah. I'm thinking two ends of a diameter here, which is not even quite a diameter, it's sort of more elliptical. We digress. Yes.
Okay, so I'm working with how students view using their textbook as a resource to learn to understand mathematics, and then if I can create this reader-centered model through the reader-oriented theory, and if that will improve their perspective of using their textbook and give them some guided notes to help them with that, and not looking at student achievement, but just viewing, you know, how useful they view their textbook. So I don't really know something interesting, I guess. Like, I got into a lot of like research about different types of textbooks, and specifically between like the corporate-based books and then the natural science foundation books. There's a big debate about like which ones are better. And I found some studies that say like there's no difference, and other ones like, oh, the NSF, the Natural Science Foundation, are better. But then this other research just kind of blew it out of the water and said it depends how you use it, not what you're using. So that's why I'm focusing on how I'm using it more.
I'm looking at how discovery learning with like a meaningful learning approach affects self-efficacy. So like one of the biggest surprises I guess I came across when I was researching was how important it is to define what you mean by like literally every word you use. Because a lot of my research I was looking into like what other people are saying about discovery learning, and I'm realizing that some people like use discovery learning the way that I am seeing it, but other people use like inquiry learning as the way that I use in discovery learning, and it's just really confusing, but it makes us pay attention to being precise.
That's an interesting point, because inquiry learning, discovery learning, problem-based learning, you know, there's all kinds of different words out there that overlap and are similar, but it depends on what you define it, because two people might use those words interchangeably, and others might argue that they don't mean the same thing at all.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm doing like cooperative learning and how like group work affects the how like students view math or science, I guess. And what I found is interesting is like I looked at 2 articles.